I'd like to start this segment talking about faith. She is, of course, with the name Faith, she has some very heavy symbolism associated with her. And some authors are very subtle in their symbolism. You really have to be aware to pick up on symbolism. This is really where Hawthorne's just beating us over the head with, symbol alert. This is a symbol of something bigger. So we need to figure out who has faith to Goodman Brown. Well, literally in the story, she is Goodman Brown's new wife. They've been married for 3 months, which is, that's a magic number. When you look at a story with the devil in it, you have to be aware of any religious symbolism. And the number 3, is a highly symbolic number. You've got the Trinity, of course. But they've been married 3 months. The symbolism aside, 3 months is not very long. If you've been in a relationship with someone for 3 months, you still don't really know who that person is, I would say, fully. They can still easily surprise you. In fact, when we look at Goodman Brown and faith at the beginning of the story, as far as what Goodman Brown thinks about faith, he views faith to be a very weak character. In fact, he says, basically, if she knew what I had planned tonight, it would kill her. So it's not she would be upset, she'd be mad, I'd be in the doghouse at night. No, he says that if she knew what was on my mind, what was on my heart to do tonight, it would kill her. So Goodman Brown looks at his wife, Faith, who is, this is a new relationship, as not a very strong person. Now, when we start to pick with the symbolism, of course, we figure out pretty easily faith is symbolic of Goodman Brown's spiritual faith. And we see this several times through the text where it talks about her ribbons, the pink ribbons. And this is, again, Hawthorne just beating us over the head with pink, there's the color pink, here's the color pink again, with faith. So I think it's important we look at the color pink and what it may symbolize. Now, I used to think that, pink was color of femininity, and that these pink ribbons just kind of showed the innocent girlishness of faith. One of my colleagues actually let me know that during this time period, pink did not have today's kind of association with femininity. You couldn't really say during the time period that Hawthorne wrote the story that he would be saying pink is a color associated with women. So we have to look a little bit more at the color. And I think the true symbolism comes from where we get the color pink. Let's say that I don't have enough money to get the best box of crayons. I've got to get kind of the dollar store limited number of crayons that does not have a pink crayon, but I want the color pink. Well, how do I get it? Well, you take 2 colors. Take white, take red, and put them together. And so Faith has several times these pink ribbons associated with her. That pink ribbon, that color becomes associated with faith, that maybe she is a combination of the color white and a combination of the color red. And if we look at the symbolism for those 2 colors, that's a pretty well established, we agree on the symbolism these 2 colors have. You've got, of course, the color white, which symbolizes innocence, virtue, purity, and then, of course, you've got red, which I don't necessarily want to say red symbolizes evil. I'd like to say red symbolizes passion, symbolizes emotion, symbolizes basically something of a desire. Okay, and so we've got white and red brought together in one person, Faith. Now, when we look at the end of the story, as far as how Goodman Brown handles the realization that the people he held to be pure, he idolized these people as purer than himself, as pillars of the community. Pillar, you build it up. Well, the higher you build something, when it falls, the further it falls. So Goodman Brown, he sees things either in shades of white or shades of red. If you aren't innocent, you must be evil. If you're not white, you must be red. He kind of refuses to see the color pink. And I wonder, when we start to think about what the point of the story is, what Hawthorne may have wanted to tell us with Goodman Brown, is that we should be aware of our pink human natures, that we as humans are a composite of passion and of innocence. If you read poetry, William Blake has an excellent kind of series that explores innocence and what he calls experience, but I'd say it's more of the red. But it's songs of innocence and experience. And they're great poems, but for example, the Song of Innocence, these are a poem series where the voice is an innocent, often a child voice. For example, they have a poem called The Lamb, and it's a child that's examining the nature of the lamb, and the lamb is Christ, and it's just this really sweet, pure, innocent poem. Then we get in the Song of Experience, the song that comes through life and living life, getting that shade of red. Instead of the lamb, we have a poem, The Tiger, and it's a scary poem, and it's somebody thinking, who created this vicious killer? How can something that created this vicious killer, this perfect predator, also be responsible for creating this lamb? I think that, to get back to Goodman Brown, I think that Hawthorne's doing the same thing. He's showing that life is a mix of both innocence and experience. And Goodman Brown never understands that. When we look at the end of the story, as far as if Goodman Brown wins, we'll have to really kind of define our terms of what do we mean by win, because that's not really an easy question, I feel, to answer. But Faith as a character is very important. She's very symbolic, not just in representative of his faith. I mean, think about it. It's his wife. It's not his mother, it's not his sister, it's his wife. Well, a wife is someone that in most cultures, and culture of this time period, would be someone you freely choose, just as like your spiritual path should be something not that you're born into, or not that you have no choice with. Should be something you freely choose. So here his wife Faith, who he freely chooses, he doesn't really know his faith as he thinks he does. He doesn't trust the strength of his faith. And we ultimately see at the end of the story, it affects their relationship profoundly. For the rest of his life, he does not have the same relationship with Faith. I do think it's interesting that even though he's disgusted by Faith when he returns, he's not so disgusted that they don't have kids with each other, because you find at the end of the story that they've had kids and grandkids. So it's interesting, he holds... he's not completely disgusted with her. He can still perform certain husband duties with her, but ultimately he distrusts her for really the rest of his life. And this is ultimately based on the confirmation when he says the line, that's that symbol alert line of "my faith is gone." He says that after he doesn't even see Faith. That's not when he sees Faith in the forest clearing. Eventually he sees, when he gets to the forest clearing, there he sees the figure Faith. But before he gets there, when he says "my faith is gone," he takes his faith and denounces it, says, "No, I'm done, no more faith." All he sees is a pink ribbon float down from the sky, and he thinks he heard her voice, but it may not have been her voice. He just thinks he heard her voice. So thinking that he heard her voice and seeing a ribbon float down was enough proof for Goodman Brown to say, "My faith is gone." He doesn't really trust the power of faith. We see this idea of proof being a subjective term. Look at Othello. Throughout the play Othello demands proof from Iago to defend the accusation against his wife Desdemona. And the proof Iago gives, we know it's not proof, but it's proof for Othello. Goodman Brown demonstrates the same kind of gullibility, that proof is not for us. We see it's not really good proof, but it works for Goodman Brown. It's enough for Goodman Brown.